and Terry Show, coming to you from the Hobbit Hole studio with a sunny, frosty morning. It is the Terry minus Jim show. Jim is unable to make it for the recording of this podcast, but it still won't stop us from pondering what we think about and what we are exposed to, what we believe, what we suspect to be true. Data. That is what I like to, do I say hide behind? I like to hide behind it. Well, data is the foundation upon which I try to build my belief system. So what do you believe to be true? There should be data, evidence. There should be some fact, something that you can measure, quantify, falsify, something that informs your position. So what am I talking about this morning? Well, I do follow the Ukraine-Russia conflict quite closely, and I have been really interested in why it is that American evangelicals, and it may be true of Canadian evangelicals or people of faith in other countries, but the data I have is only from the United States and from a Harvard-based poll that has been released, Harvard-Harris poll, that suggests that there has been a shift from something that has always perplexed me to something that I expect. What I had expected was that Republicans, in the ilk of the old school Republicans of Ronald Reagan, John McCain, those types, maybe even the Bushes, who I am not any fan of. I'm not a fan of Reagan. I'm not a fan of the Bushes. I am a fan of McCain and his famous thumbs down when Trump tried to gut Medicare in his Trump 1.0. The similar battle's happening here in Trump 2.0, despite what they tell you. It is a battle for the hearts and souls of America in terms of health care. And that is at the crux of the current lockout, the walkout, the Magic Mike Johnson not calling the House back to vote on anything. He's afraid. And we'll get into that in a minute. But the data here is suggesting that old school Republicans maybe are having a change of heart. Maybe there are enough of them to say, enough with this Trumpism, enough with gaslighting, enough with kowtowing to Putin, enough with rolling out with armed, uniformed soldiers in Alaska, the red carpet for Putin. Enough with the glad handing, enough with things that don't make sense. Russia does not make sense. It is not a natural ally with the United States. NATO is, Canada is. Countries that have traded with America are the natural allies of the United States in a post-World War II system that the United States had forged. So what gave with that blip where Republicans were supporting Russia? Well, if you go into the data a little bit, you will see that it is evangelicals who are the data point. And there's an article in a magazine, an online magazine called Verdict, which is talking about, and the title is The Missing Piece of the Putin-Trump Puzzle. Subtitle, Evangelical Christians. Okay, well, now you got me thinking, and I'm with you. The graphic is of handcuffs and an LGBTQ2SIA+ flag blending into or overshadowed by the Russian flag. Ominous graphic. I like graphic design, and I like this particular one. And what this article goes into is to say that the alignment between Project 2025 types, fundamental evangelicals in the United States, and Russia was clearly a force to be reckoned with. And it is a partial explanation, at least, of something that I couldn't understand. Why the support for Putin? And we always talked about the PP tapes, and I don't even know what those is, what the compromat is, what Agent Krasnov has, or what Russia has on Agent Krasnov, which is, of course, the pseudonym for Trump in some areas of the intelligence community. But what I'm interested in is this evangelical pro-Russia alignment. Evangelical Christian nationalism turns out to be pro-Russia. Well, I sort of wondered about that. I had suspicions, but this article nails it down and talks about one area in particular. In 2014, 2014, Franklin Graham praised Russian leader Vladimir Putin for his anti-LGBTQ crusade. Plenty of white evangelicals support for Putin for the same reasons that they support Trump. Quote, they actually admire an autocratic strongman, especially when it includes an aggressive anti-LGBTQ agenda, and I might as well go on to say an anti-woke agenda. So all the things, the culture war issues, are all on the table. And that perhaps explains why Trump has taken his position. Perhaps it's mistaking their position for what they call family values, the values that white nationalists, what evangelicals would support. Are they really family values when you support ICE rounding up people, separating children at the borders, handcuffing people without identification, without due process? Is that what you mean by family values? Well, whatever it was, Putin represented the things that this branch of America liked. And so here we go. That seems to be the explanation. All right, so what has changed? Well, it seems like some people are waking up to what Russia is really all about, which is divide and conquer. Divide everybody and anyone that they can in the West and gobble up whatever is left over. And that's the strategy. So it's starting to make sense. What's turning the tide is less clear, except that I think Americans in general are seeing the ravages of Doge, the ravages of government cuts to programs. And Trump was in the White House just the other day saying, I cut free speech. I'm cutting democratic programs. They're not going to like that, but I'm cutting them all. You mean the programs that are helping people? Those are the ones you're going to cut? Can you give me some examples of Republican programs that do good for people? And again, this is where faith hits the road of life. If you can't see your faith by the policies you support, then your faith is immaterial. It doesn't matter. It's one of those Joey Tribbiani moo points. You know what cows do. It's just doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter. Okay, so all of this comes together with another feed that I look at, which is from Professor Gerdes Explains. It goes into data analysis of the war in Ukraine, and he observes a recent poll, and that's the Harvard-Harris poll. So to get back to that there is a big shift in support for Ukraine to end the war against Russia. In other words, it's not going to be ended by negotiation until the fighting stops. How will the fighting stop? Well, apparently it won't stop until Russia is defeated on the battlefield. And that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon unless countries like the U.S. and NATO get involved in a way that commands respect. Get involved. Do the stuff that needs to be done to end the war. Last night, a huge outage in Ukraine. It went practically dark. 80% of the electrical infrastructure, which includes all the electrical supply to all the things that are critical for civilian health and prosperity, were hit. Now, that doesn't mean they're without power. They've got backup generators, and Canada is a supplier of some of this stuff. But it's still tough to see the brutality of this. And as we learn about Gaza, possibly a peace settlement there, we wonder about Ukraine. Where is the peace there? And the answer may be that perhaps Russia doesn't want peace. As Chamberlain waved that piece of paper in Heathrow Airport in 1938, there will be peace in our times. Paper tigers. Is Russia a paper tiger? Is the threat of nuclear weapons an illusion? Well, we've gambled so far that it is a real threat, and that's why we hold back. Fighting Russia with one hand tied behind their backs, Ukraine has paid the ultimate price, and I'm not sure that it is reasonable in the modern world that we expect one country to be invaded by another and brutally assaulted and let that happen. The Jim and Terry Show, data matters. There's a shift. Can you feel it?